Your eyes on the times, you walk ready to speak up. But with so many problems, you're exhausted trying to keep up.
This is the Church Politics Podcast, where you can get political commentary from a biblical worldview. We're not trying to be conservative or progressive. We're trying to be Christian in the public square.
And I'm black as heaven. I'm made in God's image. Nobody can change my settings. Amen. Got off my knees and put an end to my search. It's easy to sell your soul when you don't know what it's worth.
With your no good and camp, you're listening to the And Campaign's Church Politics Podcast with Justin Giboney, a.k.a. Bishop Cooper's grandson. And I'm reporting from you, if you probably can tell, I'm guessing, that I'm not on my regular mic right now because I'm not in the office, all right? I'm actually at Pro Athletes Outreach, the Increase Conference. So one of the great things the And Campaign has done is we've partnered with Pro Athletes Outreach, which is a ministry for professional athletes. And so they've kind of brought us in to talk to these professional athletes about politics, justice issues, morality issues, all that stuff, and how to engage in a faithful way. So it's been some great partnerships and really excited about that. So shout out to my man, Benjamin Watson. Shout out to Steve Stenstrom, and also my man, Matt Forte. Good to see everybody up here and just enjoying it, man. But I'm not at home right now. But even though I'm not at home, I got some homeboys who are joining me, if you will. So once again, I got my man, Atlanta Mays High School's finest, Howard University finest, the man with the toughest 360 wave game in the Bible Belt, Dr. Jaha. Howard, how you doing, brother?
Man, I'm feeling good. Glad to be back on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Glad to have you guys back. I'm also joined by the businessman extraordinaire, the Atlanta Politico, and the man with the toughest suit game in the greater Atlanta area, Cory Ruth. Cory, what's going on, man?
What's up, man?
And as you see, a lot of y'all don't like to watch this on YouTube. I know you prefer iTunes. We all got our hoodies on today. So sometimes folks be in suits. We're usually not really matching when it comes to the wardrobe, but today we all had the same vibe in mind, apparently. Now, as you guys know, part of what we do here is critique. And I know that when we're doing so many critiques and there's so much polarization and a lot of negativity going on, these critiques can come off as negative, but none of us on here are negative people. We're just analyzing the good and the bad. But one thing that we started doing was to name one positive thing that's happening in culture or politics. And I'm going to start us off, and I'm going to be a little selfish here. The thing that I have to name is my book came out last week. All right. Don't Let Nobody Turn You Around. This was a year and a half, 2 years in the making. Just thankful to even get it out there. I really do believe, that this book can have an impact on culture, politics. A lot of Christians are buying it, reading it, doing really well. One of the top books on Amazon. And so if you don't have it, I need you to go get that. Now, Jaha sent me, did you send me a picture, Cory? I know Jaha sent me.
Yeah, I made a pre-order and sent you the picture. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Because the next episode, y'all gonna have to give me a book report, bro. Just so I know. That's how we did back in the day, just to let me know that you read it and understood it.
That's right.
Yeah. So go out and get that. Don't Let Nobody Turn You Around. How the Black Church's Public Witness Leads Us Out of the Culture War. Really, the question that is asking is, how would the civil rights generation react in this moment, based on their principles, based on their ethics, and what they had done before? And I want to actually bring my the scripture today from here. All right. I want to be at Psalm 115:1. And this is how I feel about the book. Not us, Lord, not us, but to your name be the glory because of your love and faithfulness. God was certainly faithful to me in writing this, and I hope all of you enjoy it. And if you do, glory be to him. Jaha, what you got for us, man? What you got positive going on, man? Help us out.
Just a heads up, I've bookmarked, so to speak, reading your book for this Thanksgiving. So I'm excited. I feel like I'm saving it for like this time I can really.
You got a lot going on. What is it that you got going on right now?
Man, it's a state Senate special election happening. I mean, This is Tuesday the 18th. So I mean, we're excited. We plan on winning this thing, and we're just already thanking God for no matter what. But we're thanking God right now. But I'm excited about the book. Put it into practice in the state legislature in Georgia. But yeah, Thanksgiving, it's my read. I'm ready. As far as our good news, with the SNAP benefit situation, the shutdown, I am just blown away by how communities came together. Food banks, churches. It's gonna be, and what I also want to highlight is uh, the lack of judgment people have had for folks who are seeking help. I think everybody feels a sense of empathy. Everyone's feeling like they're one step away from being right there. And I just appreciate how even in difficult times when you see those threads, those silver linings. So it was just great to see that collaboration to help all of us in that humanity that we're all connecting with one another.
Man, churches have really stepped up, and I know the church gets a lot of criticism, primarily in my opinion, because there's such a high expectation of the church based on our history and based on what we represent. But I would love to see it, not even about the competition, how other institutions stack up to what the church is doing right now in regard to food and taking care of that need. I don't think there's too many other institutions that could come close to what the church is doing right now. So shout out to all those folks with food ministries, with food pantries that are showing love to people who are struggling right now. I'm with you, man. They really came together. That's a great one. What you got, Cory?
You know, I'm going to give a shout out to CNN, man. I felt like they did a really good job with balanced coverage of the shutdown. They didn't allow Democrats to come on and breeze over, not continue the resolution. They didn't allow Republicans to come over and not, provide full context about the ACA subsidies. And, I really felt like this was a very, very good moment for CNN. I found myself watching CNN to get, just the news in terms of the shutdowns. And even on the opinion folks, they were pressing both sides as well and showing old clips of when they said, shutdowns are bad, or pressing Republicans when it came down to, are you willing to negotiate? And also on those ACA subsidies, I know we're going to talk about it a little later, but Aaron, there were some Republicans that were like, we need to address this, and so CNN was very disciplined in terms of how they covered it.
Okay, right on, man. And I know at this moment, trust in media and all that stuff is pretty low. So there's very low expectations. However, I too did see more balanced coverage of that. And I hope they're beginning just to see that people can see through the bias.
Yeah.
So you might as well just give it to us like it is and regain some credibility. So good stuff. I'm glad we all see some positive out there. As always, guys, I got to give a shout out to all of our patrons and supporters and supporting us in what we do and how we do it. You listen to the Church Politics Podcast because we're going to give it to you real, and you see what's going on in the public square. You see the division, you see the lack of credibility, and sadly, you see many in the church reflecting that. And you know that the AND campaign is trying to combat that. That's why you listen to us. And so I would ask you to consider taking that a little further and considering going to patreon.com/churchpolitics and actually becoming a monthly giver. You can give $5, you can give $100, and that would help us continue to put out this content. So we would greatly appreciate it. And you actually get another episode, right? So I do these episodes and then I do premium episodes. And I know it's been a while since I've done this regular episode. I've been traveling a lot, and so I hope you give me a little bit of grace. But I always make sure I get those premium episodes done. So even in the weeks that I missed, the premium subscribers have gotten to listen to some episodes. So just think about it. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure that you like and subscribe. Help us out with these wicked, wicked algorithms that we're still trying to figure out. But y'all know what it is, man. Grab your Bible, get your mind right, and prepare to think not like a Republican, not like a Democrat, but to think like a Christian. Imagine that, thinking like a Christian in politics. All right, so you guys both jumped the gun a little bit, but you had some very good points. We're going to talk about the shutdown. Everybody's talking about the shutdown. This has been going on for now, I think, 43 days. And finally, we're in a position where the Senate has actually passed a resolution to keep this moving forward. I mean, this has been the longest shutdown that we've seen, and it's time to move forward. All right. Now, the reason that we finally moved forward is because, and according to ABC News, 8 senators who caucus with the Democrats broke ranks. So they broke away, at least ostensibly, broke away from Senator Schumer, who is the minority leader, and as this puts it, surrendered the fight for the Affordable Care Act subsidies that are set to expire at the end of this year to end the government shutdown. And they have been targets of serious criticism from their own party. Not just, I mean, I'm talking about from Bernie Sanders all the way to Ezra Klein. Everybody's saying, what are y'all doing? We were winning this. What is going on? So these were 8 senators: Angus King, Tim Kaine, Dick Durbin, John Fetterman, Maggie Hassan, Jean Shaheen, Catherine Cortez Mastro, and Jackie Rosen. Now, one thing to note about all these folks, and I talked about this a little bit in the last premium episode, none of these folks are up for re-election in 2026, which to some Democrats makes it sound really fishy, because you have Senator Schumer who's going out and saying no because they didn't move and give us anything on Obamacare and those subsidies. I'm against it. But he didn't tell these people not to do it. So some people feel like Schumer okayed it, but he knew because he's really in a tight spot right now. Some say AOC is going to run against him in his next election. He didn't actually vote for it, but they're saying he allowed these other folks to vote for it, which makes sense because Dick Durbin is in leadership, and rarely is somebody else in leadership going to go against the main leader in the party. And so some people are saying this is a little bit fishy. Either way it goes, the Democrat base is hot. People are upset. People wanted the fight to continue, and people felt like they were winning because if you look at Trump's numbers, Trump was looking really bad, right? And so then you have these 8 senators that they're saying caved for no reason. All right. This is what I want to ask you two, though. Did these 8 senators do the right thing? And will they be absolved if they actually do get a deal on Obamacare, those subsidies prior to the year being up? So I want to pose those 2 questions, and we're going to start off with our Republican brother, Cory. What's going on? What are your thoughts on these folks and why they did it? Were they right? What's going on?
Yeah, I think that when people think of Republicans, they think immediately of Donald Trump and MAGA. But I think if you're in the Senate, you have to think of people like John Thune. And so the reality is you see somebody like a Dick Durbin, he has a sense from his colleague that they're going to be able to have, a fair chance to get these subsidies passed. And John Thune has communicated that he wants to see them extended. Now, maybe not in the current form, but he wants to see them extended. And so there's going to be room for negotiation there. So I think this is actually going to be a win for them as time goes.
And Thune went so far as to say in a video I saw that he wants to get that done because he thinks it would create headwinds for the Republicans again coming up in the midterms if they don't get something passed. I mean, let's be honest. If I'm a Republican strategist, am I really going to let people's premiums blow up like that right before the midterms? That's the worst thing that can happen. They would have to be completely oblivious and not reading the room at all to think people wouldn't really respond to that. So I think you're right. And Thune is different than who was the brother before him? McConnell, right? Yeah. I feel like Thune works in a little bit more of good faith. Like McConnell and Harry Reid, those 2 dudes, the way that they changed the Senate and the way they just changed the honor in the, I'm not big fans of McConnell or Harry Reid because I think they handled it wrong. I'm hoping Thune deals with it differently, but a lot of Democrats are saying, well, y'all are some fools to really believe that this dude's going to let you vote on this. And maybe if he doesn't, for some reason, then they do go out bad. I have said earlier, I'm kind of with you, and I've said earlier that if they actually do get the subsidies done, then they end up being the adults in the room that actually were thinking about the fact that, hey, people are hungry. Like, don't forget about, I know y'all want to, I know your base is always wants to inflict pain on people, but people are out of their jobs. People can't go get food. It's not just about how much pain and how tough you can show everybody you are. But anyway, I'd like to get a Democrat perspective. So, Jaha, what are your thoughts on these 8 maybe traitors, maybe heroes? What are they?
Yeah, I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all, and I think it's unreasonable to trust Republican leadership right now based on what we've seen over the last year since Trump's been in office. I don't. I think it's going to go whatever way Trump wants it to go. That's the way it's going to go. So I don't all of a sudden think that Senate leadership is going to be bold and stand up about principled matters. I
So, are
think
they naive? What do you think was the
I
motivation
think
of the
that
Democrats?
I think that they never bought the idea of a shutdown in the first place. Apparent,
Mm-hmm.
from what I understand, this deal was on the table from the jump, and maybe them waiting this long was some kind of backroom Democrat leadership deal.
Or
That's
maybe they
what
were just waiting
for the
the election.
election. Yeah,
Yeah.
which makes it even worse because it's almost like they didn't pay attention to the results of the election. Because if so, the whole thing just looks really shady. And with Democrats getting so much energy and momentum, and people coming off of the sidelines saying, "Okay, it's time to move," after the election last week, and then so you basically were saying 40 something days of a shutdown for what? What did you get that wasn't available on day one? And I haven't heard a good answer for that. What did you get that you couldn't have gotten on day one? So I'm not happy with it, and all I know is I have friends in the military, people who have not been paid for a couple of paychecks, and they are just trying to like, okay, I'll take the sacrifice. I'll take the sacrifice because they think that it's going to help the American people with their premiums, like a guarantee. And now they got a maybe, so they feel slapped in the face after carrying this heavy load.
So, how
And
long would have been too long? Another 40 days
I
um,
I
to the
I
end of the
think that
year.
I think that all the momentum was moving in the direction of Democrats for negotiation purposes. And I think you keep it going to make sure that you leave with something that's going to benefit the American people in the long run because there has already been so much pain. So if there's already so much pain, you don't want to leave with something that you could have had on day one. You have to hold out at that point
But
until you
yeah,
have
but
something hard.
isn't that always kind of like the chance you take with these type of
Well,
games of chicken, right? That
but you don't
the
play.
ball was really in the Republicans' court. They didn't have to agree to it, so they could have just held out, and maybe the momentum
Yeah,
Democrats had starts to fade away when
you
it's like,
don't
hey,
play.
they're holding us back.
You don't play chicken unless you play in chicken. Like you don't even go into a shutdown unless you're willing to get what you came for.
And and
And
I
so
actually
that was a big waste of time, and it hurt everyday people unnecessarily. Well, except for ICE. ICE was still getting paid, but that's another story.
I actually think what you're saying makes a lot of sense in that you know they walked away with what they could have had 40 days ago. And I'll tell you this:
But if
Republicans,
they let me say something though too. If they wouldn't have fought at all, you think the base is mad now? If
I
they wouldn't have done anything and just
yeah,
automatically said whatever, I think I think they'd be in maybe even a worse situation with their base. But who knows? Go ahead, Cory. I'm sorry.
I'll just say two things real quick. Number one, Republicans since Reagan have been the party of decentralized government, defunding the federal government to send funds back to states and local governments, the party of smaller government. Shutdowns are chaired by our base. Like this is, I don't think playing chicken with a shutdown with a Republican president, it's like you're giving them what they want. And then the second thing is Trump and Thune are talking about passing a law that will make shutdowns, that will take shutdowns off the table, and then also the debt ceiling, creating a mechanism that will end the debt ceiling fiscal cliff every year or two or whatever. And I think that's actually going to be good for our politics. If, don't end the filibuster in those two things. And those two things, by the way, is relatively recent that those became political tools.
That's right.
Like 2000s, I guess late 90s, because Gingrich shut the government down for the first time against Bill Clinton. So these political tools aren't good because you have so many countries that use the dollar as a reserve. And so our political theater has to inspire confidence in our reserve currency. It can't make people wonder what's going on with American democracy.
For the government to keep running in general rather than shutting down will probably be good. I'd love to see the specifics of what that would look like, but it generally makes sense to me. I'd like to see what happens. Again, I will say that if they don't get a vote on the subsidies or don't get a deal on the subsidies, then it was probably a bad look. If they do, I think they end up saying, "We told you so." Yeah, we had to take some hits, but that's what grown-ups do, and we got the job done. That is yet to be seen. But there was a lot of things on the table. At one point, Trump is even saying, "Hey, let's just get rid of the filibuster." I don't know how much longer the filibuster has, and that's the interesting thing about this whole thing. So what we saw was Republicans, who usually are all for shutting down the government, need be. How could you look at what they're doing? They're shutting down the government. How could you? Democrats, who swore shutting down the government was made you a Nazi and all this other stuff, now they're shutting down the government and it's a good thing and we want to keep it going. But the same thing with the filibuster. So when Democrats were in power, the filibuster was, what they say was Jim Crow something. Yeah. And it just goes back and forth, and it's all about what position they're in rather than the actual principle of what's right or what's wrong. But you see that switch and that flip all the time. Now, I will say this. Now you have Trump kind of talking about, he was saying instead of giving the money that they've been holding, giving it back to the insurance companies, talking about giving it back to the people, he's putting out there that he wants to give $2,000 to low income and middle income families based on the money that's been raised from the tariffs. It will be interesting if he can pull that out, because if he could pull off what some people were calling another STEMI, as people were calling it, right before the holidays or something like that, that could speak to a lot of people in ways that he often takes advantage of those opportunities. What are you guys thinking? I mean, what's the fallout from this once we keep going? I mean, who ended up winning based on what you see now?
I don't think there were any winners, man. I think 40 days with shutdowns and, and that's ending up where we were before. Now, I will say all of the Democrats did negotiate to get all of the people who were laid off during the shutdown rehired. So that was good. But man, I don't know. It just seems senseless to me.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you have many winners. I think the Republicans are in the best position to maintain their steamroll mentality that we've been seeing over the last year. So I think it gets worse. And I think that Democrats are just kind of showing that we're losing this fight against Trump and his way of doing things.
Yeah, but don't Democrats have to play the long game? I mean, work on getting your messaging and your policies tight, and then the American people have to make a decision on whether they want somebody who's going to make sure SNAP benefits are there, who's going to make sure that, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes it's about the long game. What I fear a lot of Democrats are doing, especially in the base, is we just need to prove a point, and we should have held out as long as possible, basically to show them we ain't no punk. And it's like, I hear you. This has consequences, and it can have consequences for them too. You don't always have to if they start trying to play the game like Trump, I don't think that's how you beat Trump. But I could be, I could be wrong.
I think that a bully only responds to bully. Like, it's one of those things where if they know you're not for real, they're just going to wait you out. And I would agree with you if the election results that we saw we didn't have such a huge Democrat outpouring. If that election is really changed my whole view of what this shutdown and it was
So
was
you feel
accomplished.
like to beat Trump, you got to be more Trump. You got to be more of a bully than Trump. Is that
No,
what I'm
I'm
hearing?
saying that that's what Trump respects power, and I think that if you're trying to actually fight fire with fire, it doesn't mean you have to go way below the belt, but you have to fight strong and you got to fight fire with fire. I think as Christians, we have to make sure that we don't support anything that's just fire for fire because we have a King of Kings that we answer to. But thinking from a democratic lens, I think it's important to say, hey, if you know you're getting in ridiculous momentum, and I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, if you're getting ridiculous momentum, how do you just get off of it and say, well, okay. And it just so happens to be folks who don't have an election coming up. So it doesn't even seem like it's about principles or about the people at all. So it just doesn't connect. And we don't have a leader. Schumer doesn't seem like he has much of a plan. So the trust is really low. I hear you. I think that you're speaking of a situation that seems really ideal, and I hope it works out that way. But I don't think folks have confidence in the current leadership.
Yeah, I don't think it's ideal at all. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is choose your battles wisely, right?
Uh-huh.
If I've been saying forever that I don't do government shutdowns because I know people won't eat and people will lose their jobs. I'm not saying this, bend over backwards every time they want you to do something or Trump gets tough. But if we get into a pissing match with Trump, if Democrats get into a pissing match with Trump all the time, I'm not sure that you come out the same as you might think. And I think there's a question as to whether that election was just about the shutdown, right? That election could have been partially about ICE or partially about, there's a lot of other things that could play into it. And we're going to talk about that later. But it's worth a conversation. I'd be careful to feed into hey, let's just show them we're tough. You can show them you're tough, but you want to do so strategically, in my opinion. But we will be right back on the Church Politics Podcast.
Your eyes on the times, you walk ready to speak up. But with so many problems, you're exhausted trying to keep up.
This is the Church Politics Podcast, where you can get political commentary from a biblical worldview. We're not trying to be conservative or progressive. We're trying to be Christian in the public square.
And I'm black as heaven. I'm made in God's image. Nobody can change my settings. Hey man, got off my knees and put an end to my search. It's easy to sell your soul when you don't know what it's worth.
And we are back on the Church Politics Podcast. Now, there were some major elections last week. Major elections here, even in Georgia. And one of the questions I asked at the end of the last segment was, who won? Well, we might not know. There may be no winners. You guys might be right. There's no winners when it came to the shutdown. There was definitely a winner when it came to those elections last week. I mean, Dems basically whipped up on the Republicans pretty bad. And I want to get to kind of why that is. What was going on there? How did the dynamics change from November 2024 to November 2025? An article that I read from Zed Jelani. He has a Substack called The American Saga. And Zed is one of my favorite commentators because I think he's thorough. I don't always agree with him, but he is very thorough, thoughtful, and intellectually honest. And he's actually lives in Georgia as well. So here's one of the things that he says. He said, in my state of Georgia, the local Democratic Party has been taking losses for 20 years. What he's talking about is when it comes to non-federal races, statewide races, Democrats have lost for 20 years straight. 20 years straight in a state that you can say is purple, right? Now he tried to really get down to the reason for it. And one of the things that we saw was in this especially with the public, and I should have had this written down. Public Service Commission. Thank you. Public Service Commission had 2 spots open, both taken by Democrats. Major deal, right? Hadn't happened in a very long time. And one of the reasons was, and Zed is very good at pointing this out, that a lot of Georgians felt that when Georgia Power and other big corporations were trying to hike prices and all this, that the Republican incumbents were basically just rubber stamping whatever they said. So they raised prices on energy. Basically, it's basically a monopoly that they have on energy. So once the Public Service Commission lets them raise prices, they just raise prices, and people felt like they weren't fighting back, that they were just letting the corporations do what they wanted to do. And they said, guess what? We want you out. And they end up voting for two Democrats. Zed takes this to mean, and I think there's something to this, that while 2024 had a lot to do with the culture war, this particular election in 2025 had more to do what he would call a class war, or the economics of things, that people are really feeling a pinch. And even if you go to Virginia, where Sears is kind of trying to talk about transgender stuff and all that, it just wasn't hitting right now, where the Democrats were kind of focused on economic issues and things of that nature. What went on here, Jaha, and what are your thoughts just on this article in general? And is it still about the economy, stupid? Is that what this election really was about?
Yeah, I think he makes some great points. The economy is dominating, and with SNAP benefits, kind of government shutdown, got constantly kind of on the airways, and it's just part of the everyday kind of culture discussing what's happening in politics. It's SNAP benefits, and so I think the economy absolutely has kind of taken over as the number one thing. And we see how the kind of DEI fight, identity politics, you see how the maybe considered an overreach on the left and the pushback on the right. All that's happening, but it seems to be more under the surface. We did some of our own digging as well, because our election happened to overlap. Our early voting was happening while the regular November 4th voting was happening for my race. And we were blown away, guys. We have a super voters who we know are going to show up. We had probably almost 40% voters who we did not even expect to show up for a special election state senate race. And we said, who in the world are these voters? They didn't vote in the Public Service Commissioner primaries. They didn't vote in any of these primaries. We find out that these voters are general election voters, like presidential election voters and gubernatorial election voters only. And they showed up for a Public Service Commission race. They showed up for a special election state senate race, and they don't come to these things at all. No voter history for that. So there's something to it. The ground is ready. People are fired up, and Democrats came out big. General election voters came out big for this type of race. So Republicans, when they go through the data like we are, they're going to say, oh, we are in trouble for these midterms.
Yeah. Well, let me say this, though, because it seems to me that maybe this, on the Democratic side, there's some fault lines there, too. And so one of the things I want to ask you, Jaha, is this a feather in the cap of Democratic Socialists, who are the more populist side of the party, saying, hey, these establishment folks, including Kamala and all those folks, are getting it wrong. The people are about this class warfare. We need to stay on that. Are they gaining some advantage there in the party?
Very much so. That's where the energy is. They also read something recently about the number of voters who are under the age of 30. In the city of Atlanta for this Atlanta's mayor's race. I mean, just night and day compared to 4 years ago. The number of under 30 voters, like thousands of more voters, almost doubled in percentages as far as turnout from under 30 voters. And a lot of these voters are thinking differently about economy. These are folks who grew up saying the system is rigged. They're coming out of college saying, I got how much debt? I'm making how much money? How much to buy a house? The whole equation is changing, and Democrats better pay attention. Republicans better pay attention, because if you don't have a better option, that the Democratic Socialists are saying, hey, at least I have an idea. I have a theory. And we see what's happening in New York. We see what's happening in our own backyards. And 4 years ago, this would have been considered unheard of. Now it's actually the more dominating view from especially our under 30 voters in the Democratic side.
Do you think that transfers over to the independent voter that you would need for a national election? Would that hurt the Democratic Party? Because it's one thing to win in Atlanta. It's one thing to win in New York and stuff like that. On a bigger, when you're talking about presidential and stuff like that, does that help or does that hurt the Democrats, for Democratic Socialists policies to kind of be at the forefront.
I'll say that Democrats better figure out a way to be for the working class folks, the populist folks again. If they don't like the democratic socialist way of doing it, Democrats better find a way to talk to the working man and woman, or else it's a wrap. It's a problem. So
Yeah,
it's right there. The data's there. This election says so much about the economy being dominant. At the end of the day, folks still can't buy a home. Folks still are paying, twice as much in some. I mean, just on a Taco Tuesday, if I get turkey meat instead of £3 for $10 a few years ago, we're talking about $18 for some turkey meat. I mean, that's just every day
wait,
we're reminded.
you use turkey meat in
Oh
your
man, turkey meat, man, turkey meat. That's
nah,
the way
bro,
to
you
go.
gotta come on, man. See,
No,
now we got a
you know
real
what? No,
debate
we got to
going on,
stop
bro.
and
You
have a
gotta use ground.
news
I do like
segment.
turkey meat. My wife likes turkey meat, like
Well,
ground turkey.
we were trying to
But
be
when it
healthy,
comes
I
to things
think.
like
Yeah.
that, bro, you gotta use the ground.
Okay, so then if we're gonna have a conversation about steak at the grocery store, now I don't know about you, but I get really upset every time I go to the grocery store and look at how much steak costs. So I don't care who you are reminded every day that everything costs way too much. And trust across the board for all government is way too low. So everyone's just looking for another way out. And Democratic Socialists are saying we are the answer. And traditional Democrats are saying what?
But
Nothing.
let's get back to the real question. Do you like ground turkey better than ground beef?
Ooh, at home, when I can do it, ground turkey. When I'm
Better?
outside, yeah, when I'm at home.
Okay.
When I'm outside, I gotta go beef.
All right, fair enough.
All right,
All right, now I'm going to turn to the Republican, because you have a president who came in with talking a lot of populist kind of stuff. Hey, I'm giving back to the common man, all this other stuff. The main thing that he has done so far, and we just talked. I mean, and I think the Democrats, especially establishment, deal with corporatism quite a bit too. The main thing that I've seen that he's done that's had a impact on the economy is tax cuts for the rich and corporations. I think it's almost so bad at this moment that I'm trying to figure out what J.D. Vance as a populist runs on. And I feel that a lot of establishment Republicans are kind of biding their time, thinking that they're going to pop back up. I don't see room for that for real. I think that's a dream long gone with all the Reagan stuff. Talk to me about if we are really seeing a moment where it's about the economics. What is Trump going to do to get back in the goodwill? Because it seems like he's even losing some of his own people. And we're going to talk about that later. What does he do to actually show, no, I'm not just trying to help, my friends with money. I actually am here for the common man. Like, how do the Republicans respond to this moment if indeed it's about the economics of it?
Well, I mean, if you are in the service industry, there's no taxes on tips. If you are someone who works hourly, there's no taxes on overtime anymore. If you are buying a car, there's no taxes. You can write off the interest on your car. Like, these are things that are going to affect everyday people. And so I don't know if it's fair to say that. I do know that's what is driven. And I think at the end of the day, when it comes to like the elections that were just held from a Republican perspective, I look at it and I say, okay, Dems won where they were supposed to win. And people say, well, what about Georgia? And I'm like, well, in 2022 and 2024, those PSC races were put on hold by the courts, and the judge, required. I think the judge split the baby and said these are going to be statewide races, but the first one will be on an off-year election where only Democrats are going out to vote, because there was really no Republican driver to vote. And so these two guys, when you look at the primary, and that's what I do as a political strategist, I think the primary turnout is the best indicator of how the general election is going to go. I looked at the primary and saw that Democrats outvoted Republicans by 200,000. And I started texting people saying this race is over. And that was the primary. So I don't know. I mean, I think everything that you guys said, particularly you, Representative Howard, Senator Howard, excuse me, I think is true. But I think it tells us what's driving Democrats. So I still don't know yet. I just don't have any elections or campaigns or anything to tell me where that energy is on Republicans and whether it's going to draw a higher thing in the midterms or not. All I know is what the Democrats were able to do on Tuesday. But I think the biggest thing that came out of that election, the elections on Tuesday, is you had two moderate Democrats win in Virginia and New Jersey, women with military backgrounds. And then you had across the board affordability, even in the Georgia races. That was the talking point. We're back to kitchen table issues. And, I remember someone told me a Republican told me, they said, hey, the Republicans might win this midterm election. Like the Democrats are in total chaos. And I was like, politics is competitive. Like if you think your team is going to line up with that team again and just run them over, you're crazy. They're going to make the adjustments and they're going to be ready to go by midterms. And those elections let me know this ain't going to be no catwalk. Like you got to fight on your hands. And you're right. What is the Republican message going to be about affordability? I do think Donald Trump, in his big beautiful bill, has a lot of things that they can run on, like the three things I just called out, and more. But
you think that's enough? Because you named something. I'm glad you pointed that out. Is that enough?
Enough? Well, what I'm saying is, I think the Republican Party is still filled with Reagan Republicans who are adjusting to Donald Trump being over the party. And Donald Trump, like him or not, is just a regular guy. He's the first president that didn't have political background. So a lot of stuff he does is like, hey, he's a New Yorker walking the street getting a hot dog. He's going to help the guy.
I mean, he's not a regular guy, but I get what you're saying.
Meaning regular guy, meaning civilian, not a politician or a military hero. And so to me, I think those are things that Donald Trump did that a regular Republican would not have thought to do. That's my point. And they also are included in their talking points.
Do you get the feeling that the Reagan Republicans, who are still around, right? And I have some friends who are that, and we can have our differences. Do you feel like they're biding their time, feeling like they can maybe get a Rubio instead of Vance coming up? Like, I feel like they haven't given up and they're just waiting for Trump to be done to take back over.
I think they are.
But I think their time's up personally. But
I do too. I think they're looking for. I don't think they expect like, okay, in 2028 we're going to have Rubio's their best chance. It's not going to go back to Nikki Haley. It's not going to be. That's dead. But I think what they're looking to do is to have a functional relationship between the Reagan Republicans and MAGA. And that's why that whole J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio thing that you keep hearing is alive. I think the John Thune, Thune is like, hey, I can be the head of the Senate and convince Donald Trump not to get rid of the filibuster, right? So that they're trying to find a functional.
But can both those, in an economic policy, can both of those really exist? And I think Trump has tried to do it, which is why I think Trump has failed to be who he said he was going to be. Can you really balance the Reaganite economics with the more populist vibe that's going on, even within the Republican Party, especially among the working class? Can you really get the job done and have both?
They have to. So the Democrat economic goes back to the 30s. The Republican economic goes back to the 60s, right? That's how long those two frameworks have been alive. Neither one of them are relevant today. You need new voices to look at the economy fresh. Those supply side economics never dealt with globalization, open trade across the globe, where I can get a tax deduction here in Atlanta and get my regulations lowered, get all that extra money, and then build a factory in China and hire people there. Like, we've never had that before. So supply side, while yes, it works to put more money in the business owner's pocket, doesn't work to keep the money here and hire people. It doesn't trickle down anymore. It trickles out. And so we got to rethink supply side economics. And then also, it never dealt with AI. So what are you going to do with AI? We got Waymo driving around Atlanta streets, and we got 20,000 Uber drivers, and people are jumping in Waymo, and there's really no business justification other than it's going to increase the margins of the owners. So it's like we, as a culture, got to adjust how we think about the economy, but then also the Republican and Democratic Party has to do that. And the only people in the Democratic Party that has made that mental adjustment, not saying that they are right, but that's the Mandanis of the world who have like, okay, here's a way to fix food deserts. Here's a way to do, like he's thinking about that. And Trump is the only one on the right that's thinking about it. Like I said, it may not be right. People may not agree what they're doing, but I'm like, I don't want to hear that Mandani is wrong or that Trump is wrong. I want to hear what's the alternative.
Here's who I think the
That's
Republicans need to listen to. The Republicans need to listen to Orrin Cass. They need to listen to Michael Lind, because that conversation is being had. Mm-hmm. And I think the way Orrin Cass talks about the working class and focusing on working class and family is much better than Mamdani. I think that actually would reach more people, but we'll have to see. But go ahead, Jaha.
No, I was just appreciating Cory's comments. Like, if you have such an issue with an approach somebody has, what solution are you bringing forward? You can't just keep recycling the same old talking points decade after decade after decade while the world keeps changing around us. It reminds me of being on the school board, and we keep doing things the same way, and the world has changed, right? So we have fundamentals that doesn't change, but our methods have to be more creative. And we can't be so dogmatic about these things anymore. We have to think differently. So I just appreciate those comments.
Good stuff. We'll be right back on the Church Politics Podcast.
Your eyes on the times, you walk ready to speak up, but with so many problems, you're exhausted trying to keep up.
This is the Church Politics Podcast, where you can get political commentary from a biblical worldview. We're not trying to be conservative or progressive. We're trying to be Christian in the public square.
And I'm black as heaven. I'm made in God's image. Nobody can change my settings. Hey man, got off my knees and put an end to my search. It's easy to sell your soul when you don't know what it's worth.
And we are back on the Church Politics Podcast. This is Justin Giboney. I'm here with Dr. Jaha Howard and also the great Cory Ruth. I want to give y'all a quote that I think speaks into some of the things we've already been talking about. And the quote is, "I find it unacceptable that Republicans are sitting on the sidelines doing nothing to fix this healthcare disaster that is leading many Americans into financial ruin." That is a statement from Nancy Pelosi. No, actually, that's a statement from Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yes, MTG, who is probably the most MAGA representative in Congress. I mean, who has made her name synonymous almost with MAGA, right? That's what she represents. But she's actually, and we talked about this very briefly a couple weeks ago, she's actually bumping heads with President Trump. Her statement and her basically saying that, hey, the administration needs to focus less on international issues and more on what's going on here. She's had a whole lot of criticism of all the focus and all the money that's going into Israel and the needs that we have here at home. So those comments prompted President Trump to say that, I don't know what happened to Marjorie, nice woman, but she's lost her way. She responded by saying, I haven't lost my way. I'm still 100% America first. How about you? All right. I've said this over and over again. I do believe, number one, I think Democrats have to admit Obamacare is problematic. The premiums, I mean, people warned that the premiums would explode in the way that we're seeing now, and we can have that conversation. Because it did not really deal with the insurance companies the way they decided not to really straightforward deal with the insurance companies, Obamacare didn't do what it was supposed to do. The Affordable Care Act has left us with a healthcare system that's still not affordable. I think Democrats need to be honest about that. Now, has it made some things better? I think it's better than it was. The idea that it fixed our healthcare system, I don't think it's true. But I also will say this, and I've said it many times, it is legislative malpractice for the Republican Party to have all this stuff to say about Obamacare, and they still have not come up with an alternative. That I can't think of something that is more disgraceful when you got people, and this is why, and I never thought I would catch myself saying this. This is why I appreciate what MTG is saying. That is completely ridiculous. You claim you care about these people. You have no plan. You are doing nothing, and you've had years to do it. You tried to throw the whole Obamacare away. John McCain stopped you from doing it, but you didn't have an alternative plan. That's irresponsible. So I want to give Cory an opportunity first to talk about MTG and this. I mean, I think most Democrats would have said, I don't expect her to ever say anything bad about Trump or the administration. He's saying that she's playing games or whatever. She's saying, no, I'm saying the same stuff I've been saying. You're just not doing what you're supposed to do. What's going on there? And then help me understand how after over a decade, you still do not have an alternative. Go ahead.
So Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to run the same play that Fetterman ran. And I actually don't want to be cynical about either one of them. Like, I think Fetterman went from being a far left, progressive. He has a stroke. He comes out of the stroke. He's an elected senator. And you see he's become this sort of moderate branded, not afraid to critique the Democrats. And I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is aiming for that same sort of brand transformation.
So this is mostly posturing. There's no real issue with healthcare. She's just saying.
I mean, she may very well have an issue with it, but I think overall you're seeing her, because, she's been kind of critiquing Republicans. It might not have been something that has made its way outside of the Republican circles, but she's been doing this well before this issue.
But isn't what she's saying really MAGA though? Like, let's say she could be posturing too, right? Like, two things can be true. She's posturing and she's making a very good point. Isn't she very MAGA for pointing these things out though? I mean, that seems to be what MAGA was supposed to be about.
I don't know. I'm not really impressed by people who don't have solutions. That's what we were just talking about in the last segment. Like, okay, so what's your solution? Do you want to just keep Obamacare, which Obamacare has not stopped? I personally, let me just state where I'm at on this, because I think it's interesting to go to where the Republicans are. I actually feel like, we have a principle that the federal government should not do anything that can be better done at the state and local level or by the private sector. I happen to think healthcare is one of those things that the state, local level, and the private sector cannot do, and that the federal government should do it. And so I think it's a part of the federal government.
So you're one payer guy?
No, I'm a public option guy. So
okay, we're together on that.
I also think the federal government cannot pay for healthcare. Otherwise, the cost will continue to skyrocket. It's what happened to our tuition the moment the government started passing out college loans, right? It's like, okay, the school knows that every kid can pay and there's no market constraint, so the tuitions continue to rise. You have to provide it. And so the way we provide healthcare to VA and the way we provide education, public school education, we need to provide people with a public option and start in those places like rural places that don't have hospitals, and let the federal government provide healthcare. And by doing it at cost, that will be the market constraint to pull down private sector costs. So that is where I'm at. But what you were saying about her is like, isn't that MAGA? It's MAGA to solve problems. That's what made Donald Trump attractive. Whether people like the thing that he's doing or not, he's finding a problem and then offering a solution. It's what Mondani is doing. That's why I think he's very Trump-like in that sense. They're just finding a problem and solving it. And no one else is doing it. They're still giving the same old talking points: small government, limited government, strong military, peace through strength. Like, okay, that's nice.
So finding a problem and solving it, except for healthcare, though. I mean, he doesn't have a plan for that.
Well,
they're still working on a plan. Didn't he say they had some plans of a plan or something?
Concepts of a plan.
The problem is this very situation that we're dealing with that Marjorie Taylor Greene is talking about. So Obamacare is here, whether we like it or not. That's the structure that we have. And it's embedded. It's not just something that can be written away tomorrow. And so those subsidies, while obviously the system is not functioning the way it was intended, those subsidies are fixed for that, right? And so until you figure out not just what you're going to replace Obamacare with, you probably can't replace it. You probably have to fix it. And so to me, I'm like, the people who God places on their heart, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, to say something about it, should also be looking for a solution. But
I'll say this. Yeah, no, I feel where you're coming from. I'll say this. It's good to see somebody within the Republican Party pushing them on that. Maybe she's posturing too. That is part of what she does. But I'm glad there's some voice that people are being forced to listen to that's saying, y'all ain't doing what you said you were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Now, let me ask you a question. I'm going to ask you the same question, Jaha, but I want to answer this for you. So, and you're in the medical field, so I'm going to say that you probably understand how this works better than I do. I remember, and this is the reason I don't want a one-payer system. I'm concerned about a one-payer system. I remember when my wife was pregnant, and when we wanted to get an ultrasound, we got one the next day. We had family members who had federally funded healthcare, right? Could not get an ultrasound until like months later. Is that I feel irrational, or is that like the difference between you paying for your, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is that about? Help me understand.
Government is extremely inefficient. And I'm a Democrat that will tell you, as a business owner, a pediatric dentist, like, government is extremely inefficient. And but you need it, because I think government should provide safety net, right? It should provide options. But I think it would be unwise to think that private versus public, when it comes to healthcare, is going to be exactly the same. You're going to have some significant changes. So I'm glad that we're having that conversation, that we still need a baseline. I think that's what we need to acknowledge in our country. There should be a baseline of healthcare that everybody should have access to.
And I'm going to let you finish.
Yes.
I just want to finish that thought. So when I hear, and I like Ro Khanna, I like some of these ideas some of these other folks put out, but when I hear the Democratic Socialists talk about the public option like it's all good, that's what comes to my head.
Yeah.
Is that
no, it's not, and I don't. There's no concept of that being all good. It's not going to be all good, but yeah. So I think we align there. Back to Marjorie Taylor Greene, I do think it's kind of strange to compare her to Fetterman, because she's standing on American first principles, and she's asking really important questions. Like, MAGA was going after pedophiles that they thought were on the Democratic side. And so when the Epstein stuff comes up, she's like, well, if there's some pedophiles going on, if there's some folks trafficking, like, hey, we need to talk about these pedophiles. And she's standing on the principle. She's not changing like Fetterman has changed. When it comes to funding and keeping the money more in-house, she's calling out, where's our money going? It's going to Israel, going to, this whole genocide. Maybe she's not using the same language of apartheid genocide going on, but she's saying our funds, our money is going out, and we have a lot of things to pay for here. She's standing on that, and she's not changing. She's actually standing on the principle of it. So I do have to respect the fact that she's calling out the leader of her own party on the principle of a matter. And earlier we talked about how do you go after Trump? You can't go out weak. You got to go fire for fire. This is kind of what I mean by go fire for fire. Not, this is the strategy. She's being very clear, talking very straight up, and she's standing on something flat-footed. And clearly Trump is a little bit nervous about it because he usually likes to trash all of his detractors and destroy them. And whatever the case, she has enough to stand on it without him going that way publicly like he does for everybody else. I would love to see on the Democratic side more people who are going to stand on a principle, not just call out a leader because things aren't going well, but stand on the principle, whether it's, as the scripture would say, in season or out of season.
Cory?
No, I could see her. I know she was thinking about running for governor here in Georgia. I could see her running against Warnock in 28. I could see her maybe trying to run for president in 20.
Well, let me ask you this. What has she lied about? If this is all posturing, what has she said against now you want policy, I get that.
Yeah.
But what has she said that was wrong?
She might, again, to me, I feel like she may be saying the right thing, but if I'm going to consider you as somebody serious, I'm like, you gotta replace, right? So, the scriptures use that principle, put down robbing and pick up giving, right? So it's like you put something down and you pick something up. And so to me, it's like,
but I can still tell you to stop robbing people, and I still am right that you should stop robbing people. It'd be great if I added something to it. Yeah, but I need you to stop robbing people.
Yeah, but to me, I feel like she has. I don't know all that she. I don't follow Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think that's one thing she has to do is she still hasn't fully, for Republicans, broken out of that far right kook sort of lane.
I don't think she does. Yeah, I don't think she does.
And so people still kind of see this as, oh, that's just Marjorie being Marjorie. But really, I see a more critical move, like Jaha was saying. I actually see her moving. But I think the next step, if she really wants to get people to start taking notice, independents and Republicans, like, oh, wait a minute, this is a new person, I think she's going to have to do so. Like, for instance, in this shutdown, was she part of the solution? Was she part of bringing people together? Did you see her going?
What if she's not trying to be a new person? What if she really is this? I'm just trying to be MAGA, America first, and I guess that's my point. I don't think
consistent.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like she's.
I don't think
been the same person. Just maybe. Yeah.
I don't think there's such a thing as MAGA, and so I think MAGA is. I think we're used to branding people based on their voting behavior, but from my vantage, when I go around into Republican things and I'm talking to people who voted for Trump or really support Trump, that wear the, Make America Great hat and stuff like that, those guys aren't united around a set of principles. They are united around Make America Great Again, meaning, they support a national focus as opposed to globalization. And that's the point. So we don't want to.
But she's been saying that too, right?
That sounds like a principle.
She sounds consistent to me. Hey, why are you sending all this money over there? Focus on domestic stuff. That's consistent. Hey, why are you protecting these Epstein folks? If you say you're going to do it, do it. That sounds consistent to what they've been saying. I don't.
The only thing I would say is
I don't see it as a pivot. Other than I think what pivoted was MAGA not being what they told their people they was gonna be. That's where the pivot seems to me. I get these tax cuts, and I do some of this other stuff, and people are like, wait, hold up, man. You were supposed to stop all these wars. Now we still giving money. Money's still flowing. What's going on?
I think
because you see the same thing in Tucker Carlson. You see the same thing in Candace Owens. Like you're seeing. I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying I see why they're calling out what's not happening.
So I think Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens, you know what? I'm a be fair here because I think people would say the same thing about like Bill Maher and all of them. I think they may be calling out some things, but what they thought was a systematic theology is not one. Donald Trump doesn't have interlocked principles, And so
you're an ideologue for sure.
Yeah, so he's making decisions as they come, whereas she may be consistent because she's built a systematic around make America great again, but Donald Trump hasn't himself.
That's my point. Yeah, I agree.
So, but he never has. So he's being consistent.
Yeah.
He's just, hey, I see a problem over here. I'm gonna try and solve it. That problem might not be consistent with how I solve this other.
Well, I don't think he went out. I don't think he went out on the campaign trail and said, "I'm not going to be consistent." I think it was pretty explicit that I'm about MAGA America first, and that hasn't necessarily been the case to some of the people who followed him.
I think his basic constitution is to focus on America first. I think there's a reality about being in a globalized world where you're going to have to do some things that start.
Of course, there's some practical
work back in. So, and I think Marjorie Taylor Greene finds those opportunities to basically draw some contrast. Until I see her caucus with problem solvers or solve a problem, raise a problem that can turn into a bill, I think she's just posturing for a broader run.
Okay. Jaha, anything else?
I'll just say that I think our president is a crook, and he's posturing to just enrich himself. And while he's problem solving, he's surely making sure that he is benefiting from international money all over the world. And I think he's lost trust from people who believed him when they thought that he actually cared a lot about people back at home. But at the end of the day, Trump is Trump first, second, third, and fourth and fifth. And then, by the way, I might be able to win over my supporters too.
Cory, any retort there?
I think Trump is a mirror. I think people have been coming into politics and doing this kind of stuff. Trump's not hiding it. Nancy Pelosi went from being worth 100-something thousand to being worth 100-something million, all while being in Congress. I think this is just what happens. Obama went into office worth 300,000. He came out worth 18 million. I'm not saying those guys were doing anything illegal. I actually think if you listen to John Ossoff, they're actually doing legal things. And he feels like we should be changing the law so that they can't do those things anymore. So I think Donald Trump is doing the same thing they've been doing. He just isn't trying to hide it the way they were.
And he's not amplifying the worst parts of us. If it's a mirror, it's a amplification, and it amplifies the worst parts of our feature, kind of like a reverse filter.
Politics is just disgusting, and I don't think it starts or stops with Donald Trump, unfortunately.
Understood.
All right. Appreciate y'all, man. That very good conversation. This is why I appreciate y'all brothers coming on to here. I think we get different perspectives, get some challenge, but at the same time, we can do it in a civil manner. Amen. So I appreciate that. And when you come to debate in hoodies, man, it's just a different vibe. Anyway.
We didn't put him over the head though. If we did that, it's a whole different vibe.
Maybe next time we may have to evolve.
Next time we put the hoodies on.
That's right. Well, appreciate y'all being on, man. And Cap, you know what it is. There's a cross that neither political conservatism nor progressivism is fit to bear. There's a civic hearing in need of faithful witnesses who love social justice and won't surrender the truth to be loved by the world. Politic with the boldness and compassion of Jesus Christ. Until next time, man. I'll let you.
Your eyes on the times, you walk ready to speak up. But with so many problems, you're exhausted trying to keep up.
This is the Church Politics Podcast, where you can get political commentary from a biblical worldview. We're not trying to be conservative or progressive. We're trying to be Christian in the public square.
And I'm black as heaven. I'm made in God's image. Nobody can change my settings. Amen. Got off my knees and put an end to my search. It's easy to sell your soul when you don't know what it's worth.